Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we are looking at the all-new redesigned Ford F-150. This is a fully loaded King Ranch, and better yet, the all-new Powerboost full hybrid. So we're going to have a pretty thorough look at this truck inside and out. We're going to take it for a test drive, and I'm going to tell you what I really think. Before we get out for a test drive, let's talk about what we've got here. For 2021, Ford has given the F-150 a very strong refresh. Now, this is not a brand new truck from the ground up. The chassis, a lot of the powertrain, a lot of the bones, as it were, are the same as before, but the sheet metal from the belt line down all the way around is all new. That means new fenders, new hood, new doors, a new bed as we go around. And it's a fresh look. The creases are new, the lines are new, a lot of the details are new, the wheels are new, and so they've given the truck a substantially new look. But if you see it from across the parking lot, you're not going to think it's anything other than a Ford F-150. They've kept the DNA. The vehicle I have here is a fully loaded King Ranch, priced in at $77,600 and some change. Pretty spendy for a Ford F-150, but certainly not the first time we've seen anything in this price range coming from Ford. Looking at the front, all new face. I think it's pretty crisp, pretty fresh. It's a nice evolution of the previous design, a little bit more curve, a little bit more round. On the King Ranch, a lot of chrome as you can see, the grille, quite a bit of detail there I think. The headlights on this one, LED headlights, a nice driving signature during the day, and they work exceptionally well at night. There are quite a few different headlights on the F-150 as you go up and down the trim ranges. Wheels on this one, 20-inch chrome wheels. These go along nicely with the monochromatic look we have with this iconic silver paint. On the door, you can see right there the Powerboost logo indicating that we've got the hybrid. And on this trim grade, as you'd expect, this truck does have the power running boards, a feature I've talked about in Fords before. Very cool because they've got the rubber grip right here for your boots. If they're wet, not going to slip, but if you're standing close, they can get your shins when they pop out if you're not expecting them. As part of the complete exterior reskin, all the sheet metal as we go around this rear three-quarter view is new as well. New taillights, new bumpers, new creases and shapes along the side. And because we've got a fully loaded model, you can see a few details here like the FX4 graphic, and at the tailgate, a nice big piece of metal back there looking shiny like a giant belt buckle. The bed of the F-150 offers a lot of options and a lot of features, and on this truck I've got a few things that are very special. Spray and bed liner, the box link with all of the hooks and all of the lighting, but here we've also got something new on the tailgate that I really have to point out. This is a work surface with ruler measurements built into it, so it's got metric and English measurements to lay out and to measure pieces of material. It's even got clamp holes down in the back that allow you to clamp down your material by using a C-clamp inside there. It's got extra reinforced metal, and along with that surface, I think it's just a very cool, easy thing for them to have done. Also, it's got the man step. Any fully loaded Ford now has this, and I've made fun of it before. If you're a guy that isn't quite as limber as you might have been when you were 20, this is a nice feature. You can just step right up in and out of the truck and hold on to that handle. So Ford has really gone a long way to trying to stay competitive with offering features like this. The interior of the 2021 F-150 is really where the money's at. And that's because every F-150 I've sat in for the past 5-10 years, I've sat here and I've bitched and I've complained about Ford's cheap, nasty interiors. They might do some really nice trim for a King Ranch or something like that, but then they put it next to cheap bargain basement switchgear and cheap trims in other ways, and then you have real wood right next to the cheapest, dirtiest plastic you've ever seen in your life. And Ford's been listening. I look around this interior, and really my biggest takeaway, and I'm giving away the store before we even get through this interior, and that is that the quality has become consistent throughout. The plastic, the switchgear, the fit and finish, The level of attention to detail is like nothing I've ever seen in really any Ford, to be honest with you. I'm very impressed. And that really can't be overstated, because if you watch my reviews before on Ford trucks, I've sat here and went on a tirade about how they weren't doing their interiors right. And they've clearly been watching what Ram's been up to and listening to people, because this is a sea change. There's no other way to put it. But that aside, let's talk about where I'm at right now. In the King Ranch, this is some of the nicest trim you're going to find. The Cowboy Western Store Edition, I like to call it, named after the King Ranch. We've got the King Ranch brand logo in the seats. Beautiful leather seats, two-tone. This has got the Java interior color, genuine wood trim. And look at that. Look up close at that wood trim. That actually has a nice raised design in the wood trim, a very nice look, and that's something that you can actually feel when you run your finger across it. That wood extends to the steering wheel, the door panels, and down here on the console. They paired it up with a beautiful brushed aluminum trim. Some of the trim's actual genuine aluminum and some of it's plastic, but it all looks consistent. It looks of a high quality. It's got a great feel to it. I'm really impressed with what they've done here in the way of making everything not only look good, but feel good. There's a lot of features here, obviously. We're in the King Ranch. The chairs that I'm sitting in are actually something very interesting. These are the multi-contour seats. We first saw this in Lincoln, but they have a massage function that you activate by pressing a button down on the side of the seat, and then you can really adjust that on the screen, and it gives you a nice massage setting. They're also heated and cooled. And in addition to that, these have the Max Recline option, a very cool thing that they've now come up with that allows you to recline these seats all the way back, almost completely flat. And that allows you to sort of take a nap and sleep in your truck much easier than before. And the seats are designed so that when they do lay back, the lower seat cushion comes up and the high back tilts forward just a little bit, so it can actually give you something that's comfortable. I'm very impressed with that. As I sit here and look forward, there's a brand new fully digital instrument cluster, which means it's completely customizable, and you can put just about any type of information sets you want to have on it. It's beautiful to look at, and when you start the truck, it's got a great graphic, sort of an intro that comes up. It's very cool. They've done a nice job with that. And all of the switch gear has just a nice high quality feel to it. And the buttons are big too, so you can wear your work gloves. This center console is very well designed and very well laid out. It not only looks good, it feels good, but there's a lot of practicality going on here. The first thing is this slide open cover, which exposes an area for your phone down in the bottom. There's a wireless charger. There's a place where you can put your phone up right here, and the connection ports. Cup holders are off to the side, and we've got a regular gear selector, not a knob. And Ford retained this, but there's something that I got to show you here. There's an interesting little button here that does this. It pushes the shifter out of the way. Now, why do they have that? That's because there's this cool feature here called a work surface. This is a nice smooth desk that folds out. You can put a laptop here, you can lay papers here. You can use this as a nice work surface, and that's why that gear shift lever folds out of the way. And I have to give it to Ford. They saved the lever, and they've gone to all of this extra work to create this little feature so that we didn't have to have a knob like some of the other brands. And I appreciate that, because I hate the knob. I love the fact that they've retained that. Inside here, there's still quite a bit of storage. Down below, there's easily room for about 12 bottles of water down in there. It's a very deep well, and there's an extra shelf. So it's a nice comfortable place too. You can sit here. Both of these armrests are on the same level. You're not tilting to one side, and the gear shift is right there. Nice design for this interior, at least up front. Your rear seat passengers are going to find a lot of space back here. As you can see, these seats are set for my height, about 5'8", 5'9" with my boots on, and I've got plenty of leg room here, as you can see. The seating position is a little bit on the low side, but it still feels reasonably comfortable in a place I think I could probably spend some time back here on a road trip. And with all the amenities that I have, I definitely could be comfortable. There's air vents, heated seats on the King Ranch, and there's plenty of power ports. There's a 12-volt 120 AC and a USB port for just about anything I could want to use back here. Now, these seats do fold upward in a 60-40 split, and in this truck I have the lockable partition storage under the seat, which means you can raise the partition up and then you can lock these seats down. And it appears large enough for a rifle or any other gear that you might have for camping and hunting and things like that. When it comes to rating this interior, you might be surprised if you watch some of my videos because I'm really impressed. This is the first Ford interior I have sat in a very long time where I really can't find a lot to complain about. And if you watch my videos, you know that means something. This is a sea change. Ford has been listening to someone. I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's other journalists, J.D. Power, whoever it is, they got the message. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. Now we've got to talk about the infotainment center because this is big news. A 12-inch screen, now the largest Ford's ever offered in the F-150. It's not the portrait style like we found in the Ram and some of the other vehicles out there that are sort of becoming that style, but still a very large screen. Here we've got the B&O Unleashed sound system, which has a phenomenal audio quality. And with this is the Sync 4. I'm pretty impressed with this overall usability, the visible graphics, and the ease of use. The menus are very well laid out, and I find that it's very easy to learn on the fly. The best part about it is they've backed it up with hard controls, volume, tuning knob, and things that you're going to use more often than not, so you don't have to page through menus to get here and there. And of course, you've got the 360-degree camera view, and the same screen is used for a lot of the other towing functions and the Pro Trailer Backup Assist and all of the different features that this truck offers. So when it comes to scoring this infotainment system, I'm very impressed. It works well, good graphics, good sound. It's fully featured. There really isn't anything missing here. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, let's go for a quick drive here. The first thing we have to talk about is what's under the hood. This is Ford's first full hybrid F-150 pickup truck. And what they've done is they've added their venerable 3.5-liter twin turbocharged V6, an engine that's been proven now for well over a dozen years, and they've added it to their new 10-speed automatic transmission. But this transmission has a powerful electric motor built in. So in total, we have 430 horsepower and an astounding 570 pound-feet of torque. 570 pound-feet of torque. And like any hybrid, what that allows to happen is that the gas engine can turn off sometimes and you can be powered on electric power only. Other times they combine to give you full power. And that gets us to the question I always like to ask, which is, how does it go? Not bad. And 60. It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. Now, it is a full-size, heavy truck, so I mean, 430 horsepower is not going to really move the world, but it's plenty of power. And the thing about this is because it has a 10-speed automatic transmission instead of an EVT or a CVT like a lot of hybrid vehicles do, it drives like a traditional pickup truck. It shifts gears. It acts like a normal gas pickup truck. And so when you step on it, it downshifts and off you go. And because of that, the towing rating and the payload rating isn't that much different in this one as it is in the standard EcoBoost engine pickup trucks. Important because it's still a truck, it has to work like one. But around town, the gas engine shuts off quite a bit and allows you to motor around at slow speeds and sometimes at coast on electric only power, and that lights up on the dash and tells you you're doing electric driving. So it's like any other hybrid in that respect. It changes the way this thing conserves fuel. 24 mpg city, 24 mpg highway, and therefore a 24 mpg combined rating is what the EPA says. And that gets us to the rub. My experience with it this week is that I only really got 19 to 20 mpg no matter how I drove it. So it didn't quite meet my expectations in terms of hybrid power, right? Hybrid, that tells me I'm going to get a lot more mpg. I just haven't seen it. It to me doesn't seem cattle guard that I got fuel economy that was much better or really any different than a standard EcoBoost pickup truck. That and the fact that this engine tends to be a little bit abrupt when it starts and stops. The tuning on the start and stop really isn't quite nailed yet, I don't think. Those two things, I have to rate this powertrain at 4 out of 5 stars. On the topic of ride and handling, this is a vehicle that I found for the most part in the past is one of the better handling and riding pickup trucks on the market. Chevrolet tends to be jittery and stiff, Ford tends to be a little on the softer side, and with the F-150 that's definitely coming across in the DNA here. In the hybrid model, a little bit heavier, the tuning seems to be about the same with the 20-inch wheels and a pretty tall sidewall still. the ride's pretty well isolated from a lot of the rougher stuff like railroad tracks, cattle guards, and things like that. Out here at speed on this particular road, which is typically a noisy road to drive on because of the pavement service, it's very quiet, very little wind noise, very little road noise. In fact, I have to say this is probably one of the quietest F-150s that I can recall ever driving, and that's especially something you notice around town when you're on electric-only power. But as far as the handling is concerned, the one big thing that really strikes me about this, aside the tuning, the feel, the quietness, is the fact that this truck has the adaptive steering system, which can speed up your steering at slow speeds like in a parking lot when you're doing maneuvering, and it slows down your steering at speed like right now on the road. And so when I come into a curve like this, it tends to feel very slow off center. In fact, I have to dial in a little bit more steering than I might have expected to based on my experience with it at slower speeds. And that for me is the rub. I really don't like these systems all that much, because if you get used to a vehicle at slower speeds, in this case like I have around the city, I bring it out here to the country and I find it hard to predict how it's going to react and how I'm going to have to do steering inputs. And that really comes to the forefront of being important if you have a trailer or something like that and the truck's doing things you didn't expect. Cattle guard. And so I'm a little bit disappointed with this system. If you can option a truck without it, that's something I would definitely do, because it just adds an extra layer of complexity to the driving experience here. But really, when it comes to driving a truck, one of the most important things I like to see is how it drives off the pavement. To that end, one of my favorite places to bring any truck to test is the Desert Washboard Road. And even though this isn't hardcore off-roading, this is a washboard road very similar to what you find anywhere in the country. Farm roads, Texas, Arizona, Missouri, they're everywhere. And so it's a great way to see how well put together this truck is, how well tuned the chassis is, how solid is this cab structure, and all of the interior bits. Because this vibration can make a lot of vehicles, no matter how expensive, feel like a complete pile of crap. And so what I'm finding here is that this is performing very well. It's remarkably quiet on this road, just like it was on the pavement. The chassis is very stiff, but more importantly, I've got a well rubberized suspension, and this being the crew cab tends to make it a stronger structure than in the super cab, because we've got an extra vertical structure bar between the two doors that the super cab doesn't have. So it does tend to be a little bit more of a solid cab. But the big thing here is I'm not noticing any vibration in the dash or the door panels. My doors aren't really vibrating around in those door jambs. So I'm very impressed with how we're performing on the Desert Washboard Road. And it feels very good out here as far as the handling overall. So when we add that in with my total handling experience, the steering, not so good, but the rest, pretty good. Chassis comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. The last thing I like to talk about is value. Now that's a pretty hard thing in my opinion when we talk about full-size trucks, because not only are there so many variations, especially when we start talking about competitiveness, there are a lot of discounts to be had in the full-size truck market. So when you look at pricing as an example, it's hard to really say, does that have a value? Because you always expect 5, 10, 15 grand off full-size trucks, especially in this price range. But as I look at this new 2021 F-150, the Powerboost, fully loaded model here, I put the value at a pretty high score, and that's because Ford really upped the build quality on this new 2021 pickup. It's no longer the Ford that I used to sort of look at with a skewed eye, especially with the interior. Everything about this truck says they've upped their game. So I put value at 4.5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about in this review, we're at a 4.5 star review. Very good for Ford. I'm happy to say they've actually upped their game a little bit. So much so, this actually makes it on my I'd buy it list. That's a first. F-150 makes my I'd buy it list, and that's all about the up quality. It's all about the quality. So good job, Ford. I'm very impressed. If you like the video you just saw, click right here, see my latest one, or better yet, click down there, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Either way, stay tuned.